Congratulations, you made it through chunk 1 and 2, which, as I said, are probably the most kind of boring videos for the whole course, basically because there's not much of a tweaking to do, but yeah, as I said many times, everything over there, it's kind of necessary, so we couldn't really avoid that. Now, in this chunk, we are really going to go crazy with sound design and moving, all this stuff, all these parameters. But there is really, I promise, one last thing that is really, really important. And in order for us to understand how to design sounds. And what I'm going to explain now is the concept of Detune and Unison. If you remember when I was talking about how to program, and when I was doing the overview of the ES2, I said that over here you can control the semitones, right? And you can control the sense of tones, all right? Like this, up to 50, because basically you can go negative. And so if you want to do, for example, 60, what you should do is going up 1 and go down 40. That would be like going, there you go. It would be like going 60 cents up from this semitones, but no, that's kind of confusing. So don't worry about it. Usually we don't want to go higher than like 25 or 30, because otherwise it gets like really kind of not messed up, but really unharmonic and kind of dissonant. So it's not too nice. But before we start messing around with it, let's just go on my fantastic Photoshop and let's see what the detune is. Now, we have our C notes over here and our oscillator. Also, the important thing is that to do a detune effect, you would need at least 2 oscillators, because if you detune just one oscillator, you can't perceive the detuning because you don't have a straight perfect note to compare with, okay? So back to Photoshop, here you go. Now we have our oscillator 1, this nice purpley color, and it's playing our C note, right? If we go up 1 semitone, we have a D. If we go down a semitone, we have not an A, but a B. I really don't know what I was thinking. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we go down 1 semitone, we have a B. We go up 1 semitone and we have a D. But you can see here, these are actually 100. I like spent 10 minutes in doing all the little lines. These are actually 100 lines, okay? And we can shift our oscillator through all this sense, okay? So we can take our oscillator and say, okay, you play over here, and it won't be a perfect C, but it will be a slightly C out of tune towards the D, okay? But let's keep it here for a second. Now, we've seen, let's suppose we're playing a saw wave, and we know that our saw wave has all the different harmonics, okay? Let's just use our imagination for now, and these are all our harmonics from a C saw wave, okay? Now we have, you can see here, 2 oscillator. We actually have 3, but for now, let's have 2 oscillator. And we want our oscillator 2 to be slightly detuned towards the B, okay? Because I'm doing minus, all right? Why would we want to do that? Well, let me bring the oscillator 2. Okay, we detune it a little bit towards the B. Okay, why would we want to do that? Well, of course, our oscillator 2 will have some harmonics as well. And look what happens. We are gonna take our oscillator and add different harmonics. We're gonna add more harmonics to our, previously to our existing harmonic of oscillator 1, all right? And let's say now we activate our oscillator 3 and we go up 15 cents of tone, all right? And that would be over here. And of course, even in this case, we have our oscillator 3 harmonics. So if we look at all the harmonics, let me bypass it and grab them. There you go. This is the spectrum that we are going to have just with one sound playing 3 different oscillator in different detuned positions. So you can definitely tell that this is way more complex than a simple saw wave playing its harmonics. Okay, we're going to have this kind of situation. And of course, bear in mind, this is not even a semitone. So everything is really, really close. Now I made it quite obvious so that you can see the difference of the harmonics. But basically what we're gonna get is a sound that has a lot of harmonics all together, really, really close, but it's gonna make our sound way, way richer. So let's go into our ES2, bypass this for a second, and let me turn down the volume a little bit, because otherwise I'm gonna have a needle in my ear. All right, go one octave up. Okay, this is our single saw wave, no detune. Let's bring in our second oscillator. Actually play a C. Right now, the harmonics are the same. Let's get our nice plug-in. All right, the harmonics are exactly the same. As we detune it down, look what happens. You see over here that the harmonics are slightly shifted. Okay, it's the exact situation that we have over here. Okay, oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. We have one more oscillator that we can bring in, and that's detune up 15 semitones. So let's look at what happens. There you go. You can actually see the 3 peaks, There. You can see the 3 spikes over here. Here they are. As I bypass oscillator 3, they're gone. Bypass oscillator 2, gone. All right, and you can already tell that the sound is way, 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 way richer. As opposed to... And of course we can make it really obvious, but as I said, it's kind of dissonant. But if we go up and down 50 semitones, 50 cents, kind of sound like a horn from a car. And yeah, that's probably a little bit too much. I would go like 15 or 20. That's usually about right. And there you go, you have this kind of sound. And this is actually super important for electronic music. Basically, I'm not gonna say 99%, but I'm probably gonna say 97% of the sounds in electronic music are have detune, because basically the sound gets way richer. We have like 3 times the harmonics in this case, and they're all close together, so the sound still sounds good and perfectly in tone, but it's richer. That's it, and it's fuller. It's just better. I'm a massive fan of the detune. Right. Let's forget about this for a second, and let's bring in another really important element for enriching the sound, and especially have a sound to have a sound that sounds good for electronic music. And this thing is called Unison, which is this one over here. Yeah, pretty much every synthesizer, either VST or hardware, they pretty much all have it. Same for the detune. As far as they have 2 or more oscillator, you can detune them. The ES1, it's kind of different. Yes, you can say it has 2 different oscillator, but one is a sub oscillator. So in that case, you can't detune it because it's linked to the oscillator above. This over here are oscillator on their own, so they work completely differently compared to the ES1. Now, let's just look at the Unison. We can forget about our harmonics for a second. I hope this design was like good enough. I spent like a lot of time on it. All right. So the Unison is an effect that basically stacks a certain amount of voice of the same tone each and every time we play our key. Let's go back here for a second. Sorry if I'm doing like, the ping pong thing. You see over here, this is our voices. Right now I'm in poly mode, so these voices here set how many keys I can press at the same time. Like if it's 1, I can only press 1 key, and if I'm playing a chord, it won't play the chord, it will only play the last note. If I set it to 32, I can play 32 keys at the same time. And yeah. If we switch to mono, the voice, and we turn on the Unison, of course, the voices over here, it's gonna set how many of the same notes it's gonna be stacked over the note itself. And let me represent it over here a little better. Let's forget about our oscillator 2 and 3 for the moment. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 voices. Okay, we have our oscillator 1 being played 8 times stacked over. Okay, so the sound is going to be way bigger, but at the same time, if you notice here, they're not completely in line. They're slightly detuned. That's what happens with the Unison. So even here, you can already imagine that you're going to have different frequencies, of course, and the more voices you have, the more frequencies you're going to have, the more harmonics you're going to have as well, because they're never going to be aligned all together. They're always going to be shifted a little bit. Now, if we have also oscillator 2 and 3 being unisoned, you can imagine what a big, giant chunk of sound you're going to have. Because if you remember over here, you're going to have this just for one voice. Now you get this multiplied times 8, all right? And I mean, you can go up to 32. So you can imagine what kind of big sound you can get out of it. And of course, the more we detune it, and the higher amount of harmonics we are going to have. So everything is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and richer in harmonics. So that's actually really, really cool. Also, another thing that we can do, and in a second, I promise I will play everything so you can actually hear what I mean. With the analog knob over here, we can set how much all these voices are going to be detuned. So we're basically going to have 3 detuned oscillators stacked X amount of times and detuned even further with each voice. So we're going to literally have a giant sound, and you can imagine it will be perfect for a lead sound, because of course the lead sound is the main it's usually the main element of our track. It's the one that plays our melody, so we want something big and really rich in harmonics, and this is why we want to use both the Unison and the Detune. Now let's forget about all these colorful lines and stuff and start playing a little bit. Now let's go down with the voices. Also, one thing that has to be said on the ES2, in poly mode, basically the Unison will only double up the voices. So basically, even if you raise the voices over here, it's not gonna stack 16 voices over. This is once again the amount of notes that you can play at the same time, and once you play Unison, the voices are going to be doubled up and nothing more. Well, with the mono and the legato, of course, you can have 32 voices maximum playing at the same time. I wouldn't go that far, but anyway, let's just look at it in mono for now. And there you go. Simple saw wave in Unison. It gets more stereo. Tone, it's pretty much the same, but as we raise with the analog, you can see over here. All right. Now let's bring in our detune second oscillator. All right, pretty crazy, huh? And this is still one voice. So basically it's 2 voices playing at the same time now. Let's bring in the third oscillator. The sound is massive already. Now let's go up to 4 voices. Ready? It's huge. It's a huge sound. And let's go up to 32. Just, you know, for the heck of it. You can see that pretty much all the frequencies are all the harmonics are taken. And because of this, it generates a little bit of white noise, because of course, pretty much all the spectrum is filled. But you can tell it's a pretty big sound, and you can already start using something like that in your lead, especially if you're doing trance. That right now I'm really exaggerating with everything, so let's bring it down. 8 voices is usually a good one. And if I turn the analog down, so basically everything is not going to be so detuned, it still kind of sounds bad. It's really simple still. So let's go up a little bit. It's getting there. You know, it kind of gives this perfectly rich and really harmonic, really wide, nice lead sound. And as I'm going to poly, you see we're only gonna have 2 voices now, so it's gonna sound a little thinner. But this time we can, let me take out the voices. This time we can play chords. And there's a massive difference between chords that are like this, right? The sound is totally different, and you can already recognize a lot of lead sounds from a lot of other tracks. So this is, to me, one of the real most important thing about sound design, especially for electronic music. It's Detune and Unison, and learn how to use them together. So basically, once again, Detune is gonna shift our oscillator a little bit. So this part over here, it's gonna detune them, okay? And it's gonna create a lot of harmonics. And the Unison, it's gonna get all those harmonics and stack them all together X amount of times. If we are in mono mode, if we are in poly, it's just gonna do it twice. So 1 and 2, it's just gonna do this. But so basically, this is gonna enrich our sound in a way that nothing else could ever do. This is really the most important thing if we want to do trancey or progressive lead, this kind of big so detune sound. This is what we have to do: analog, detune, and unison. And we get this. Of course, we can apply it to pads. We're gonna look how to do it with pads. We can apply it to leads, of course. This is basically a lead sound. And we can do it with basses as well. That's a little bit more delicate. We're gonna see it in a second. But this part is really, really important. So now that we've seen this, let's move on to the leads and see what we can do with it.